the first interaction that I have with you as an organization, as a candidate, is going to tell a lot about whether I want to work with you and whether I'm going to stay with you. It's as simple as how easy is it to even apply on your platforms.
Welcome to the People Champion podcast by ElevateHR. ElevateHR is a cloud-based platform for the African market that lets you easily manage your employees' payroll, leave, and performance. If you're an innovation-driven HR, then this podcast is for you. Our goal at ElevateHR is to elevate the HR professionals, and we do that in 3 ways. Firstly, through our innovative system that makes your work easy and fast. Secondly, through our community that helps you network and connect with like-minded HR professionals. And thirdly, through this podcast that helps you upskill as a HR professional. My name is Pilin Kasara, the current Head of Community Development at ElevateHR Africa, ready to dive into yet another insightful podcast. I'm so excited today because I'm joined by 2 incredible people professionals. And I'll begin with, ladies first, with Dorcas Nderito, who happens to be the founder of Women in HR and is also the Human Resource Manager at HR. Dorcas Nderito, karibu sana.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So, yes, I work in HR and I'm the founder of Women in HR, a community that supports women in HR. Apart from that, I have more than 15 years experience in human resource, worked in different industries, retail, hospitality, and now in construction. I think my joy in HR is when I watch new talent coming in and they grow in the company. So I'm into mentorship. I mentor a lot and also get mentored. Yes.
Amazing job you do at Women in HR. Thank you so much for taking the time. And then we also have Wycliffe Osoro, who is the head of HR at Swissport. He has over 20 years of experience in HR and is passionate about talent management, change management, business partnership. I could go on. So, Wycliffe, thank you so much for coming. Tell us also a little bit about yourself as well.
Thank you, Pili, for inviting me to this podcast. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a HR professional, like you said, so I won't repeat that. I'm very passionate about people. I'm passionate about leadership, matching right talent to the organization, and creating the right culture in organizations. And there's a lot that I can talk about in the HR space. Apart from that, I'm passionate about running, golfing, and I love children. And yeah, so that's me.
Oh my goodness, wow, thank you so much for coming. So today we're going to be having a conversation on talent acquisition. And while I look at want to look at it holistically. And maybe we can just start with you, Wycliffe. What would you say are the key components of like a holistic talent acquisition strategy?
Okay. So when you're looking at a talent acquisition strategy, I think it's a lot more than recruiting. Recruiting, anytime you talk about talent acquisition, the first thing that people think about is recruitment. But I think the components of a good talent acquisition strategy start from workforce planning, understanding what are your needs as an organization, how many people you require to be able to deliver on those needs, where are you going to get these people, at what time, and then after that you then look at how do you attract these people. So attraction is part of the recruitment phase. How are you able to source your candidates? What are the different areas that you're able to source your candidates from? And then after that, once you get the talent on board, it's how do you engage them, how do you keep them, and how do you retain them to be able to, bring out the best in their skills for the organization. So I look at that those are the key components that you look at in terms of course, there's issues around systems that you're able to use to be able to get data that you need, get people in, and also just sort of evaluate how you're doing at the end of the day in terms of your talent acquisition.
Awesome. I love that. And maybe as a follow-up, before we get into now the actual recruitment, engagement and retaining strategies, I'd love to know from you, Dorcas, how we can ensure that strategy that, Wycliffe has talked about aligns with the overall business goals. How do we ensure that,
Okay, so basically what he has walked us through is the narrative of what we get to do when we get it right. So the first concept is figuring out what your people strategy is and how it aligns to the business strategy. If you get that part right, it actually makes it easier because then you're able to come in and design. And in the designing, it means you're not only going to do it as a HR, but you're going to come and involve the line managers because the delivery here is we are looking for a talent that is going to come and meet the business need. And you cannot do that if you don't have I would say the input of the line manager. And how we get to do it is by collecting data. What is the role about? How is it going to bring in terms of the business continuity? And also, how are you going to measure it at the end? So the design looks at the needs, the outcome that is supposed to come out of, and the end result, so that you say, okay, this role is going to give us an ROI on this in terms of the business. And making sure you know the right ROI for each role matters, because then when you're talking about remuneration, you will have designed it in line with it.
All right. So I'd love actually to get to know from your own personal experiences, other than, the traditional job postings. Like we want to know some interesting, innovative recruitment strategies that you have used. I know you guys have over, collectively, I don't even know how many years of experience that would be, but you've worked in the space for long. So some strategies that you can, vouch for when it comes to recruitment, engagement, and retention as well.
Okay, maybe I'll go first. And I think my experience, of course, not been doing a lot of active recruitment of late, but in the past, especially with the levels of, say, entry-level graduate management trainee programs, there has been opportunities to look at career fairs. That's very traditional, but I think it's still a fantastic way to be able to, visit the campuses, get involved in activities, support them in the various activities. And you don't necessarily have to go there and say, this is a career fair. It's how do you partner with institutions in different things that they're doing, looking at curriculum of the institutions. What are the things? Because there's a lot of talk about institutions not being able to provide the talent that matches what the organizations need. So I think one of the most innovative ways to work on that is work very closely with the schools, design, even the curriculum. What are the things that we are seeing as gaps as organizations, to be able to then work with the schools to develop curricula that addresses that. And as you keep on interacting with the schools and having discussions with them, you'll always have activities where the students are, and you're able to pick talent. You're able to understand who are the people who you can nurture and sort of target for your organization. So traditionally, of course, the career fairs have worked, but now a lot of what we're doing around communities, developing communities, and even using, especially at entry level, using that's one of the things. Communities still work for more senior levels, networking events, as in HR, there's opportunity for you to really take advantage of the non-conventional things. I mean, you'll recruit people even at golf tournaments. You'll be able to identify talent. So I think there's opportunity in very vast places to be able to identify talent. I don't know what Dorcas probably thinks about that.
I actually agree with what you say. Remember I mentioned I really love mentorship. So another way on how you can actually get talent is through mentoring people. And the conversation actually can start even in universities. It can start even at workplaces. Remember, you have the internal recruitment that will take place and the external. And the conversation here is you want to have a ready talent. And therefore, when you have mentorship programs that are running, anytime you actually have an opening, it will be very easy to fill because you'll have already identified the skill. Another way of looking at it is through partnering with the government. For instance, NITA does a lot of attachment, but one thing I don't know if everybody knows in terms of the HR space is you can tailor make the kind of people you get. So you just don't get everything out there from the university. You go very specific and say, these are the equipment we have. This is the kind of person I'm looking for. So if they're interested in this space, why don't we try it? And I've tried it with the engineers. And it was such a great opportunity because we were giving an opportunity first to the students to practice. and a space which they will never get sometimes in the workplace, where you get to put in all the theory you've done and we get to see, okay, how do we now come in and pick the best of the best, and then we incorporate them into the system. So the programs all depend on how you play them out. Again, we're picking up a wheel that is already working and saying, how do we make it function for our own needs? So even when you're looking at mentorship, just don't go with the standards of what everybody is doing. Pick it up based on your industry, based on your needs, and then say, I'm going to have a mentorship for 3 months because after 3 months, this person will be ready for the role. And then another thing, Billy, when you're looking for talent, you can actually start working on a succession plan. You start looking at high-performing individuals who are really great in their space, but you can see how they can grow and evolve. And sometimes growing is not just going up vertically. It just depends on where the organization is. They can go horizontally or even downwards to start from scratch. But the goal here is, how do you nurture that talent and how do you identify it? I've hired people in supermarkets. I am just there shopping and I'm like, Pili, the way you're serving, there's this role, just apply. And that is it. And to me, it has become a conversation. So I go to restaurants and I look at how people serve me and I'm like, I can recommend you. Why? Because at your natural nature, we're able to see your true self. And therefore, I'm very sure if you get into a new environment, the delivery will be the same. And when you think about the nature for interviews, people come so structured, don't wear red, don't wear this. It's all fake sometimes. And I'm looking for the real you. So the only way I'll get you is at your best.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've remembered one time in the past, I managed to hire for a very senior resource just by the comments that they were making on Twitter. And I was able to say, okay, this person really looks like they really quite understand. And they were very senior where they were. And eventually we identified them for a very pretty senior role where I was working. And, it's just looking at, what are people commenting? What are they saying? Where are they? And matching and saying, this is what we're looking for as an organization. And I think there's someone who's speaking about what we could be doing, and probably they'll make a great talent for the organization. And they were fantastic when they got hired. So it's, you can get talent anywhere. And I think now more than ever, there's more opportunities. Tech is really one of the spaces where you can really get to know a lot about people across different geographies everywhere. So you're able to identify talent anywhere. And I think that's the future of really getting good talent on.
So you should be careful what you're posting out there on social media.
No, I think not. It's not about being careful. It's intentional. I always tell people, especially when you're, and this is advice I give to even young graduates, and I say, you have to be present in your space. You have to talk about the things that you know, so that people out there can be able to understand. You have to, even if it's those virtual events, that you have to attend virtual events that, are in your space. And you're able to really understand a lot. I remember, was it last year, that Safaricom had some very interesting event around technology, and it was this big. And I can remember following that event. I'm not in tech, but I was watching the event and I could see this amazing young talent that is there. And for sure, I am sure that the HR team at Safaricom was definitely looking at talent even in that event, because they had hackathons, they had different things, they had challenges, they had presentations, they engaged the people. And I think for me, that was something that is a very great strategy to be able to attract talent, because you will find people there and you will understand that it's not always that when you post jobs, that's a traditional way, but great talent is very difficult to find, but it's there and you can be able to get people.
I like that. Let's talk a little bit about now the candidate themselves, with a focus on, because I think every employer's dream is that they'll have employees who are actually engaged. So right from the process of talent acquisition, first of all, is how important is it to get employees engaged from the onset to now at least when they're employees? So maybe you can talk about that as well.
Okay. I think the first interaction that I have with you as an organization, as a candidate, is going to tell a lot about whether I want to work with you and whether I'm going to stay with you. It's as simple as how easy is it to even apply on your platforms. How, Is it easy apply? Do I have to go through too many clicks, too many documents? And then is it, are you selling the story about your organization? Do I see a way that, can I be able to picture what it is to work in your organization without being in your organization? So it starts from there. The first interaction that I have with you as an organization is going to determine whether I want to proceed. And if you keep me engaged through the process, I know in HR we're culprits, not just HR, but organizations. And a lot of times I speak, it's not HR that necessarily does that, but it could be part of the organization. So we keep people cold through the process, and then we feel like we can just pick them up at one point and say, now here is the job, get in. But people will always look and say, you know what, if they didn't keep me engaged through the process, this is definitely probably what they do inside the organization. So you have to be intentional throughout the process from when you're attracting. And attraction is not only when you are recruiting for positions, it's what is your business? What's the brand that you've built as an employer, even when you're not looking for any role, that when someone interacts with you, if you're a customer-facing business, I'm a potential employee. So if you treat people badly, then already I would not be interested in working with you. So I think you have to be very intentional as a business to build the brand. Everyone is an ambassador of the organization. It's not only HR. Every person working in the organization, because I'll identify if I want to work with the organization, I'll only say, who do you know who works there? And what kind of a person are they? So I'm not looking, organizations are people. It's a collection of people. So what is the culture that's there? And so at that point of attraction, you really have to ensure that everyone is selling the organization as a potential place where people would want to love to come and work with you. That's really the first thing that I'll say. And you'll be able to attract the right talent. So talent acquisition starts from that point, really. You have to create that. Yeah.
I like that you talked about culture. I wonder, Joseph, what kind of culture retains employees at HR?
A great culture.
And what's a great culture?
So interesting enough, when you're talking, what was playing in my mind, for sure, is I was thinking about our guards, our front desk lady, our external guards. I've gotten myself in a space where people have embraced what the organization is about, that even by the time you're coming for an interview, and I'm talking about my experience when I was going for an interview there, the way they received me was so meticulous. At one point I asked myself, has this external guard been trained on what they should say, and do they know I'm coming? Mm-hmm. And it was the warm welcome that I received the first day that I still receive up to now. And it's not just to one individual or because you're in this category. What I've discovered is the nature of how you treat me is how I'll treat you. And therefore, respect actually for HR starts from the bottom. You respect that cleaner, you respect the overall owner the same way, because everyone matters. And that conversation has come out so clear that it's not a reminder, it's what we live by. So even at the point where you're being interviewed, you'll be received so well. People go out of their way to ask, you are not calling, no, I will check with the HR. If you came this way, somebody has to support you and figure out how you ended up here without an appointment, and you'll still get support. So for me, when I'm looking at culture, it is how do we bring out that narrative? And the narrative tends to be extended, and how everyone says the fish rots from their head. It just depends on how it is up there. The person who delivers, even if it's a tea bag to your company, will know how to treat you because they will see it from how you're being treated. And right now, we have so much feedback we get from social media about how interviews have been. And I like that because, in the past, it wasn't there. It was just an email that told regret. Now people are going back and saying, baby, I'm not working for you because you were there. I came for an interview, nobody assisted me. All those small feedbacks really matter because they're talking about your culture unknowingly. Yeah. And it's a conversation that is easy to have. It's just looking at the mirror and admitting we need to have this conversation first. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, you're thinking about culture. Culture is beyond the values that are printed on the walls of your organization. But then a great culture for me is when those values is what you experience every day in that organization. What you stand for is what you actually do. So that's when you say there's a great culture. A great culture is, where I feel, great culture drives engagement. Because if you have a great culture in an organization, people want to come and work. People want to come to work because it feels great. If you don't have a great culture, then people just come because they know at the end of the month they'll get paid, or they're probably not going to get another job elsewhere. But culture is, I think, everything in the organization. And like she said, it starts from the top. Everyone has to sing the same story. And it doesn't matter if you have a department that has a bad culture and the rest have a great culture. Imagine people will be looking at that department and saying, I don't think this is a good place to work. Because you never know, it could easily come to our department. So I think that's one of the challenges that I look around culture.
Awesome. So, because we always talk about the innovative HR, so I'm curious to know about the role that innovation, data analytics plays in all of this, like the holistic talent acquisition strategy. Yeah. So maybe we can start with you, Dorcas.
So let me tell you, we talk about how you design jobs. Remember, before you design a job, you'd have to pick out and collect all that data. Most of the time, if you look at how JDs are done, and I like the lady who challenged Safaricom and said, I picked your role, place it on AI, ChatGPT, and this is what I got. These are like 4 roles you're trying to play out into one. Now, the challenge there is people are querying, people are reading JD. So by the time you're picking up a JD and saying, this is what we're going to put out, you need to have gotten the right data out. And it's not only the line manager, it's all the other shared services that will be coming to support this role, or this role will be supporting. So what I've seen actually helps clear and make things a little bit more clarable, or I would say clarity comes out because of 2 things. One, you don't get to have a mixed skill that is not out there in the market. We tend to say we're looking for a data science, analytics person, and a HR person, and we also need this person to have a background in finance. That narrative is not there. There is nothing like that.
With how many years of experience?
And 10 years of experience, at least 3 in each, there's nothing like that. But when you use data, and that's why sometimes you'll see most companies are moving and scaling off to ATS systems when it comes to recruitment. It's not only for the recruitment cycle, it is also for them at the back end to say, this is what I'm trying to build. And remember, as you're building this JD, you need to build the KPIs. So you need to figure out that if I'm looking for somebody who is excellent in finance, they need to have some measure that is out there. And remember, the uniqueness comes because of the company you're in. The uniqueness is not only on the talent, because if you're in manufacturing, then the numbers of experience should be equal to an equivalent experience in terms of a cost. But what I would say right now, data has simplified for HR is you're able to track and understand what should be projected out there for a role, but also you're able to know the performance of the role when the person starts working. I believe he has more to contribute.
Yeah. No, I think when you talked about the ATS, which is very great. I'm involved currently in a project where we're rolling out a new system in the organization. And part of the back-end development that we're looking at is being very clear to understand at what point do people drop off in the application stage. So the data that you're able to get from the ATS is able to tell you people either come, spend a few minutes on your entry page, and then they drop off. Or you've kept them on this stage for this long, and then they drop off. Or or managers are dropping off people at this stage, and what are the reasons that they're giving. So that data is able to tell you what you need to do in terms of your talent acquisition strategy. You're able to tell what are we doing wrong, what do we need to do right. Data is very wide in terms of performance data. You're able to tell, you link it with the people you recruited and what expectations you had. She talked about ROI. Are you able to then see that through data? So there's a lot that data and data analytics today can be able to do for talent acquisition. You're able to tell a lot of things. Where are we getting people? Who are the top people who apply to us? Where are they coming from? What regions? You're able to manipulate a lot of that and be able to tell, this is working for us, this is not working, this is where we need to focus on, this is what we need to improve, and you're able to pick out trends, you're able to have solid conversations with your hiring managers to be able to guide them on what are the trends that you're seeing. So data really has changed the field of HR. If I look at it from many years past to now you're able to tell a lot. In fact, it's very interesting that a lot of data now in advanced systems and advanced places, they're able to tell, by the way, this employee is going to resign on this date and is going to leave you, or this employee is not going to show up for work. There's a lot of trends that, there's a lot of information that's out there. Of course, with data privacy, there's a lot of blocks that may come to that. But I think we've gotten to such an advanced stage in data and data analytics that you're able to tell a lot of things. You're able to project what is going to happen in the organization, what's going to happen with the talent that you have going forward. You're going to be able to really, with data, you can tell whether you're going to have a certain absenteeism rate and when you're going to have it, or it's an attrition rate that you're looking at, within what levels, when. So there's a lot that you're able to tell with data.
I love that. It's true indeed when they say that data is for sure the new oil or gold. Yeah, so I think you alluded to the question that I'm about to ask, the challenges that HRs or even yourselves have faced in implementing this holistic TA strategy. So maybe I could hear from you. What do you think are some of the challenges that most HRs face, and how do you overcome the challenges faced by when trying to implement these strategies?
Let me go fast. I'll tell you one thing: budgets. You need money. We need money. That's the one challenge. But however, it is selling the importance of the end result, because you get into an organization, especially if it's a new space for you, and you're given certain KPIs to achieve. In order for you to do, you need supporting resources and tools. And the biggest thing I've noticed with most upcoming HR professionals is, how do I sell this big idea to my boss? For instance, when you want to put an ATS system, you need to show where the money is coming from and how it's going to be on return. So the biggest challenge also comes in how are you managing this life cycle of an employee? Because you can't manage this life cycle of an employee on paper. Yeah, you need resources that would improve. And basically, when you're thinking about now hybrid, you need to manage and actually come out with a proper performance plan for the person who's working off. Right now, you're not at the office, but you're working. How are we managing your performance? And how do we make sure that it's fair for the person who's working in the office? So with the change of times and also introduction of AI, what I've come to see is, if as a HR professional, you don't keep up with the current trends, you won't be able to outmanage the new generation that is coming in, and also the delivery of work. Work is being done everywhere, and therefore it means you should be able to log in, assess somebody, you should be able to log in, pay somebody, you should be able to log in and actually hire, promote somebody from a system. How that system works and how you design it really matters on how you present your case.
Yeah. So when you look at the challenges, especially towards on a talent acquisition space, and I think the first part that I talked about was workforce planning and understanding, projecting what it is that you need. The environment sometimes can be very fluid, and that's where the partnership with the business, with your commercial guys, with your operations guys, is very important, so that you're able to understand and project what it is that you exactly need for your business in the next 1 year, 2 years, with, what are the key types of talent that you're going to need going forward. So I think one of the challenges is a lot of times we don't get together with the business. So people are very busy, and the fact that, a lot of HR, in the HR space, a lot of organizations still have not embraced technology, and I love what ElevateHR is doing, is you try and take out as much of challenge of, the paper that you're talking about, so that you can focus on other things. So you can be able to have those conversations with your business leaders to be able to drive the fact that, in 5 years, this is going to be the key talent that we'll require. And we're going to require X number of them. Are we able to do that from within the organization or not? Where will we source these people from? And how will you be able to address that need when it comes? So I think the conversations between the business and the HR guys is what needs to happen to be able to drive that. So that's one of the big challenges. Yes, of course, she's talked about the budgets and how, how are you able to afford people, how are you able to attract the right talent and pay the right amount for the right talent. It's one thing that sometimes I say, yes, you also need to pay for the job that's there. So that's a bit controversial that, I'm not paying you for your skill or your papers. I'm paying you for what I need done and what the return is going to be there. So sometimes being able to get that match, to be able to determine the right remuneration level, the right skill and skill level that you require, so that you're not getting people who are extremely overqualified, expecting a lot of money, and then the task that you require them to do is not commensurate to that. So how are you able to match? One of the challenges, how are you able to match what you require to the resource type that you require and to be able to remunerate them correctly? So those are some of the challenges that I would talk about from a talent acquisition space. Of course, we've talked about retention. That's a big challenge in businesses, getting people to stay, getting people to give you value when they're there. I think sometimes why do you want people to stay? Because the cost of replacing people is very high. But if the people you also don't want people to stay and they're not giving you value. So you have to be able to balance the two, to know that you need to carry along people who can be able to deliver for the organization, so that those ones you'd want them to stay. The others who are not pulling their weight, you wouldn't want them to stay. So there has to be, your thoughts around people who are unwanted leavers and wanted leavers. There's that discussion in the HR space, so that you're limiting as much as possible the unwanted leavers. And how do you do that? You create a great employee value proposition. The employee needs to understand why should I work for you? What is it that I'm gaining? And there's very many aspects that you can be able to do to create an environment where the employee feels valued and wants to continue working. So retention, of course, is a big challenge, but retention, you have to retain the right people in the organization. So I could go on and on. It's a really big topic to just look at what are the challenges, but I want to limit it more to the talent acquisition.
All right. I think that is very well said. So maybe as we draw to a close, I'd really love to know from you two what you envision the future of TA to look like. Like, what's the future of talent acquisition? What are the trends that you're seeing emerge?
I think for me, first in Kenya is being able to see more companies embracing fast remote recruitment. Thoroughly from the word get-go. I know quite a number of companies are coming on board, but we still have the majority who actually hold the bigger numbers, like in hospitality and retail, that really require to get to that level, because you reduce most of the work that you take in time in recruitment. And also applying systems. They're just trying to see how do you then create a whole pool of talent that know very well anytime there's work, because I'd already been interviewed. We are at a space of I'm only just going to be engaged to sign a contract. Where we are is we are engaging someone in 2-3 weeks, then somebody signs a contract. We need to move from that phase, because that talent will still get another competition out there. And I think I'm hoping to see in terms of a change in the HR space is feedback. We really weak on that. And it's being driven in a way that if you have a system, it's easy, but then if you're intentionally able to do it, and some of these things, it's just proper planning. Get interns who can do other additional work so that you have these other things that you can focus on and get feedback. Because you may not get that talent now, but there's a high probability that talent would be what you'll be looking at in the next 2 or 3 years. So you don't want to leave that discussion off. And then finally, how do you get it right when somebody is exiting? First, accepting that somebody is about to leave, and also getting it right when they're exiting to do the exit interview, so that now you can collect the data, utilize it to retain the life cycle of this current employee, so that, as we have all said, make sure this employee is engaged. If we do those small bits, I believe the HR space in Kenya will really change, and have a mindset of being a change agent that you can bring into an organization.
A change agent. I love that.
I just want to pick up from something that she said, offboarding, which we didn't talk about, But offboarding also has a space in talent acquisition because the people who've worked for you also have a say on whether you attract people or not. So it's a very important component that those who leave the organization live in a good space so that they can still be your ambassadors even if you've separated because they've either left for good reasons or they had an experience even if they did not leave for good reasons. They did say, you know, this is an organization that has that cares about its people. So if I look at what is the future around talent acquisition, part of the things is I know there's been a lot of outsourced recruitment and all that. And I honestly feel that in the future, there's going to be a lot more of insourcing. A lot of that is going to be done internally. Why? Because when you integrate that, you know, recruitment and talent acquisition is not just recruitment. It's a whole space, like we've talked about in the conversation today. So having a third party then doing that for you becomes a little bit more difficult. And when we embrace a lot more of the systems, then it will be much easier to start doing that internally and much easier for you to have those conversations with the managers. So I tend to think that within the talent acquisition space, a lot of that is going to be done internally in the organizations more than where you'd be sourcing for people who are going to be able to support you in the recruitment journey. Because a lot of times, yes, they're great recruitment firms. They are able to source talent, able to do all that. And in technical roles, I'm not saying that they will disappear, but majority of roles would be recruited from internally. So that's one of the things that's there. Of course, the future in talent acquisition is going to be more difficult, especially within the Kenyan space. And also globally, you're tending to see that. In Kenya, we're not very used to people working for many organizations. In fact, I think it's almost like an abomination. How can you be working for this one, and this one? No, but it's going to be, you know, with the systems, with a lot of development, there's going to be opportunities for people to even do multiple employers. So that's a challenge. How do you then keep them engaged? I think there's a video I was watching on from Simon Sinek that talked about a guy who was serving coffee, I think, in one store and serving coffee in another store. But in one store, he's really engaged. And he says, you know what, I love working here, I enjoy it. But when he goes to the other place, he doesn't. So how are you going to be able as an organization, when you have multiple people working for multiple organizations and also requiring to deliver for you, how are you going to be able to create that environment that they're engaged when they are with you? They'll be engaged when they're with the other people, and it's going to be fine. So I think the future is going to be very different in terms of how people work. And yeah.
Oh, so I love that. So in conclusion, so we've painted a picture of what success looks like in terms of like the holistic TA strategy. But now, how do we measure? Because, you know, at the end of the day, we have to measure. What metrics do we use to measure that our strategy is working? So maybe we can conclude on that note. Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many ways to measure, but what I've always seen has been important is having an NPS where you do a survey first. Remember, the life cycle of an employee has to be measured. And as I said earlier, you actually need to know the ROI even before you start that role. The essence of knowing the ROI is actually to understand that if this person has started working as an associate for the next 2 years, are they still supposed to be an associate? And where are they supposed to move? Have they exhausted their budget? And is it even time for them to be elevated to the next level? But at the same time, through the NPS surveys, you're able to know what parts are we missing out. And I've realized that people avoid the surveys because of the bad feedback. But when you think about feedback is feedback, whether good or bad, it's either said in front of you or behind you. So which one is best? You'd rather do it in front. And what I've realized is performance reviews need to be used to get our ROI right. Performance reviews are not supposed to be an exit sequence. They're supposed to be conversations. Because what we're saying is, hey, we gave you this box to take care of, and we're supposed to multiply it in so many boxes. So where are we? And because you have not, then I need my box back. But right now, where conversations or performance are, it's more of we are attacking the talent. We're not even looking if we actually give them the box and the actual resource for them to deliver. So the ROI really matters on what we have also put on the table than opposed to us saying that it's time to cash out because you're not delivering. So to me, it depends on the results we're putting out there in terms of the resources, and also at the same time, what metrics are we putting to measure? So for me, previously, what I've realized is by creating this conversation with the person, this is the path you should have, that in an year or two, you should have elevated to a different level. I'll be able to say I've gotten my ROI. As long as this person has not left, they're finished their 2 years, if it's a fixed contract, and they've grown. If we're still stagnating in that role, there's something wrong, and we need to look at it.
Okay. So I think when you're looking at success in terms of talent acquisition, there's a number of metrics that come to mind. I mean, the simplest metric is attrition. So you need to know how many people are we losing, what's the percentage that we're losing. And in attrition, I talked about those who you want to leave the organization. So there's unwanted leavers, and there's those who are there's wanted leavers and unwanted leavers. So wanted leavers are the ones basically you're like performance-based, disciplinary, all that. What percentage are you comfortable with? And then also for now, the unwanted leavers, what's your attrition? So that's one of the components of measuring your success of your talent acquisition strategy. If you're getting the wrong people, they'll tend to leave. So if you're getting the right people, they'll tend to stay. So that's one of the ways of measuring. We talked about engagement of employees. So like she's talked about the surveys that are there, that you're able to measure your employee engagement. That is one of the ways that you can be able to tell that your strategy is working. The other thing that you need to look at in terms of your strategy and talent acquisition strategy working metrics is around your succession planning. How are you growing talent from within? And if you had projected that this person was going to join this organization and in X number of years was going to be at a certain level, you're measuring that to see, have we achieved that or not? If you say this person was going to be in top leadership in the next 5 years, if it's 10 years and they're not there, then there's something wrong with your talent acquisition strategy. So those are the key metrics that I'd look at. I'd look at your attrition, I'd look at your engagement, I'd look at your performance in terms of meeting your succession plan and getting the right people growing within the organization. So that's what I'd look at.
Wow, what a way to end this podcast. I'd really love to hear from you. Now, this is the last one. So, parting shots, advice to somebody, just one piece of advice you'd give to like a HR who's looking to implement their TA strategy at their organization. We've talked about their challenge, in spite of the challenges, just one piece of advice for them, and then we'll wrap it up.
I would say design properly, collect the data you need, analyze the data, create a budget, and you'll be able to hire the right talent. Just as simple as that.
I love that. Design, analyze,
Diagnose, and then get the data, get the budget, and then hire.
Noted. All right. What about you?
For me, parting shot, I think to be able to have a great talent acquisition strategy, I think there's a partnership with the business. You can't do it alone. So you must use the business, get their buy-in, be able to project what it is that you need in partnership with them. I think that's the most important thing for someone looking to be successful on their talent acquisition strategy. And then focus on the employees, really focus on the employees and ensure that you create a good place to work through the managers. I know a lot of times we say HR, the ratio of HR to the entire organization is usually very, very large. So the people managers are the ones who will be able to help you achieve your talent strategy.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe and Dorcas, for being a part of this podcast. We've had such an amazing time and we've learned a lot. Remember, if you're watching, please engage with us. Let us know some of the talent acquisition strategies that you're using in your organization. And if you're looking for an innovative HR system to manage your employees' payroll, leave, and performance, do reach out to us at ElevateHR.co. We'd also like to thank our hosts for this podcast, Ikulu Suites. If you're looking for an elegant, furnished apartment that's close to the city center, check out Ikulu Suites on Airbnb. They're located along State House Road.